News right now, we know the trial date for the man accused of Memphis rapper Young Dolph. Prosecutors say Hernandez Govan was the mastermind in the back in November of 2021.
Tonight, we strongly encourage everyone to stay home if you do not have to be out.
The whispers started circling as soon as Yo Gotti made his move. It wasn't just a relocation, it was an escape. The timing was too perfect, too convenient for anyone to believe otherwise. Gotti dipped out of Dallas in a way that screamed urgency. Not the kind of urgency that comes with a big business deal or an unexpected family emergency, but the kind that makes you look over your shoulder. Because when the heat is on, you don't stick around to let it catch up with you.
We see Yo Gotti lost his brother.
Yeah.
Was at a funeral and his brother ended up losing his life. Savage, how do we stop that cycle? Because I heard Rick Ross call and say, bro, let's put the guns down. Let's put the masks down. Let's come together.
Yeah.
Let's build these communities. Let's get this paper together.
For years, Gotti has walked that fine line between businessman and something far more sinister. And now, the cracks in his empire are starting to show. Federal agents are reportedly connecting dots that have been sitting in plain sight for years. Let's not sugarcoat this. What's being whispered in those shadowy corners of the industry is nothing short of catastrophic. The kind of whispers that have the words organized crime attached, the kind that turn into a full-blown RICO case if the wrong, or the right, depending on your perspective, evidence lands on a prosecutor's desk. And let's take a moment to talk about timing, because this isn't just happening in a vacuum. The trial surrounding the tragic end of young Dolph has stirred emotions and raised questions that Gotti and his camp are finding harder and harder to dodge. It all came pouring out in court, allegations, testimonies, details that made even seasoned reporters shift uncomfortably in their seat. Cornelius Smith, one of the men charged in connection with Dolph's demise, painted a picture that no amount of public relations spin could erase. It's a story that ties everything back to Gotti's brother Anthony Big Juke Mims, who allegedly orchestrated the hit like it was just another line item on a to-do list.
Yo Gotti's brother, Big Juke, got after leaving a funeral. And from what I understand, he was at a restaurant with his mother. He was coming out.
They was coming out the repast of the viewing of the body in the driveway, to the parking lot, I thought it was.
Here's where it gets really messy. According to Smith's testimony, Juke dangled a massive payout to get the job done, a promise that seems to have been backed by CMG's resources. Smith claimed he and co-defendant Justin Johnson, better known as Straight Drop, were lured into this twisted plot with the promise of tens of thousands of hard-earned currency. But here's the kicker. Smith said he only ever saw a fraction of what he was promised. The kind of fraction that makes you wonder if the whole operation was built on lies from the start. And then there's the money trail, the one thing that's harder to erase than footprints in wet cement. Smith didn't just stop at claiming he was shortchanged. He went on to allege that someone from CMG, yes, that CMG, covered his legal fees after he was arrested. 50,000 currency units handed over to a lawyer to defend someone accused of being directly involved in one of the most high-profile cases Memphis has ever seen. That's not pocket change, and it's certainly not the kind of thing you do for someone you barely know. It's a move that raises more questions than it answers, questions that federal agents are undoubtedly asking as they piece together a puzzle that gets uglier the closer you look.
I don't think that ever would stop. It's just my opinion. Like, people been forever.
Mm-hmm.
That's life.
But what are they actually for?
Nothing. But you can't, there's nothing that you can somebody for that validates.
Right.
And let's not forget Wack 100. The self-proclaimed industry insider who never misses an opportunity to stir the pot. He's already drawing parallels between Gotti's situation and the recent downfall of Young Thug's YSL crew. And let's be honest, it's not hard to see why. Both involve accusations of criminal enterprises masquerading as record labels. Both have federal eyes watching every move. And both have that looming specter of a RICO case hanging like a storm cloud ready to burst. Wack didn't mince words. When he warned Gotti to start praying, it wasn't just a casual warning either, it was a direct hit. He laid it out in plain terms. If the feds decide to classify CMG as a criminal organization, it's game over. Every handshake, every phone call, every bank transfer becomes a potential piece of evidence. And when you're dealing with the feds, They don't come knocking unless they're already holding a pile of receipts.
He walked out, his mother got in the van or the truck or something, and he
Yeah.
was standing out, and the guys attacked him.
Yeah. And then now he has to bury his brother.
Yeah.
And then he had this huge police presence there because they were thinking that it was going to keep going and someone else was going to get shot. And it's a sad situation, man.
But here's the thing, Gotti's not just dealing with legal pressure. The streets are talking too. And if there's one rule in this game, it's that the streets always know before the suits do. Gotti's move to Dallas might have been framed as a business expansion, complete with Instagram posts and smiling photos alongside local talent, but nobody's buying it. Not when the timing lines up so perfectly with the mounting allegations, the court testimonies, and the whispers of federal involvement. It's almost poetic in its transparency. And Dallas? Let's talk about that for a second. On the surface, it seems like a smart move. A fresh start in a city with its own thriving music scene, far enough from Memphis to provide some breathing room. But if you dig a little deeper, the cracks start to show. Texas isn't just another state. It's a chessboard where every move is scrutinized, every player watched. And let's not forget, the feds have a long history of making big cases out of Gotti might think he's playing it safe, but if there's anything this situation has taught us, it's that safety is an illusion.
Robert Thornton Jr., known as Young Dolph, rose to fame mixing tapes and was soon hitting the national music charts.
His attracted a large crowd to the cookie store on Airways Boulevard, many frustrated and angry that this could happen here.
What makes this even more compelling is the sheer audacity of it all. Gotti's not just running from the past, he's trying to rewrite the narrative in real time. The Dallas move, the business deals, the social media presence, it's all part of a carefully crafted image. But the cracks are there and they're getting harder to ignore. Because no matter how much you try to control the story, the truth has a way of slipping through. And the truth is this, Gotti's empire is under siege. The legal battles, the testimonies, the allegations, they're all pieces of a puzzle that's starting to take shape. And the picture, it's painting as one of chaos, desperation, and a man who's running out of moves. But if you think this is the end of the story, think again. Because what's happening in Dallas is just the tip of the iceberg. The real story, the one that's been simmering beneath the surface, is about to explode. And when it does, it's going to take everything down with it.
Today was the last day, like you said, that Govan and his defense team had to accept that plea deal from prosecutors, and that's why a trial date.
And just when you think Yo Gotti might be running out of moves, the layers start peeling back on what's really happening behind the scenes. The Dallas move, that wasn't just a relocation. It was a tactical retreat. Because the deeper you dig, the more it looks like Gotti's empire isn't just under siege, it's teetering on the brink of collapse. And the storm that's been brewing since Young Dolph's untimely exit is now raining down with a vengeance. Back in Memphis, the streets have turned into a chessboard, and Gotti's every move is being matched, sometimes 2 steps ahead, by consequences he clearly didn't anticipate. The names attached to these events, the faces that keep popping up in connection to this mess, all point to one undeniable fact. Gotti's control, the grip he once had on his circle, his city, and his business is slipping, and fast.
But now that I'm older, it's like I look at it from like an older point of view.
Right.
But when I was younger, it was like, if somebody your brother, like, what can stop from wanting to kill their brother?
You're seeking revenge.
Like, what can stop you from wanting to do that? You feel what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Take retaliations, for example. These aren't isolated incidents. They're calculated, deliberate, and ruthless. Every time someone even remotely tied to CMG surfaces in the headlines, it feels less like coincidence and more like strategy. The streets are making it clear that no one gets to walk away unscathed. And while Gotti might have thought his position at the top would shield him, the reality is proving far less forgiving. It's not just his enemies who are making moves. It's the very structure of his world that's starting to crack. Let's talk about the connections being drawn between CMG and the events that have unfolded since Dolph's exit. The testimonies coming out of courtrooms aren't just pointing fingers. They're laying down blueprints of how things allegedly went down. The payouts, the promises, the behind-the-scenes deals. It's like peeling back the curtain on a play that's been running for years. And the more details that emerge, the harder it is for Gotti to distance himself from the narrative.
This is the problem, Black. A lot of the celebrities, they have a voice, they do their music. But what people don't realize, when you have a beef, these are real street guys. It's just you have the voice. So people hear you, they don't hear me because, I'm in the hood or I'm down here. But I will still pull up and spray and do what I gotta do.
What's even more damning is the silence from CMG. When accusations this heavy hit the airwaves, you'd expect some kind of response, a denial, a rebuttal, anything, but instead, it's crickets. And that silence, it's deafening. Because in the world of influence and power, silence doesn't just speak volumes, it screams. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, there's more truth to these stories than anyone on Gotti's side is willing to admit. And then there's the fallout from the hits that have already happened. Every time someone connected to CMG, whether directly or through association, becomes a target, it sends a message. Not just to Gotti, but to everyone watching. The balance of power in Memphis is shifting, and it's not shifting in Gotti's favor. The streets are essentially drawing a line in the sand. You can run, you can hide, but you cannot escape the consequences of what's been set in motion.
Well, police have finally cleared this scene, but there are family members and fans here tonight. And as you can see behind me, they have boarded up the windows of this business that were damaged or shattered by gunfire. Police are asking for calm as they investigate this.
What makes all of this even more chilling is the calculated precision with which these events are unfolding. The connections between key players, the timing of certain incidents, and even the locations where they occur all seem to follow an unspoken code. Take the sudden disappearance of certain names from the public eye. Names that used to be fixtures in Memphis nightlife, industry circles, or even CMG's inner workings. It's as if the streets have issued a silent warning. Align yourself too closely with the wrong side and you'll find yourself erased, whether figuratively or literally. And while Gotti might be trying to distance himself from the chaos, the reality is that his name is still the one whispered in every corner, tied to every headline, and etched into every retaliatory act, like a signature he can't scrub off. And let's not forget the money, because while much of this drama plays out in public, there's a financial game running in the background just as fatal and just as decisive. People are starting to piece together how the funds allegedly flowed between CMG's higher-ups, legal teams, and even the streets themselves. Financial records are being scrutinized, and whispers of off-the-books payouts are making the round. These aren't just casual accusations. They're the kind of claims that, if proven, could dismantle an entire empire. And the scariest part? The trail doesn't end at Gotti. It's a web that stretches far beyond him, pulling in everyone who ever benefited from CMG's success. The question isn't just who's next. It's how far this thing goes before it collapses under its own weight.
It has now been set. Now the prosecution, well, they say Govan was the one who recruited the shooter's young Dolph, while the defense says otherwise.
At the same time, there's a psychological toll that can't be ignored. For all of Gotti's bravado, the pressure is mounting, and it's starting to show. His social media presence, once a steady stream of confidence and success, now feels more calculated, almost forced. Every post, every picture feels like an attempt to project control, to remind the world, and maybe himself, that he's still on top. But no amount of filters or captions can hide the reality of what's happening. The streets are watching, the feds are circling, and the walls are closing in. And while Gotti might still have his loyalists, even they must be questioning how much longer this ride can last. And then there's the silence from those who were once vocal supporters of CMG. Artists, associates, and even industry insiders who once stood proudly beside Gotti are now conspicuously quiet. Some have gone completely off the radar, while others are carefully avoiding any mention of the chaos unfolding around him. It's a loyalty test on the grandest scale, and the results are telling, because in the world of power and influence, silence speaks volume. And in this case, it's saying that even those closest to Gotti might be preparing for the fallout, distancing themselves before the entire empire comes crashing down.
This was a shooting that occurred at a cookie shop, and we're just not sure what that motivation was, and it's a little bit too early for us to.
What makes this entire situation even more explosive is the federal interest that's starting to swirl around CMG. The idea that the label could be classified as a criminal enterprise isn't just a rumor. It's a very real possibility, and if that happens, it's not just Gotti who's in trouble, it's everyone in his orbit. Because when the feds come knocking, they don't just take down the king, they dismantle the entire kingdom, associates, affiliates, even those on the periphery. They're all fair game. And the precedent has already been set with cases like YSL. Gotti knows this, his team knows this, and you can bet the streets know it too. But let's not pretend this is all about the legal system. The real danger for Gotti isn't just the feds, it's the streets. Because while the legal system moves at its own pace, the streets move fast. And the streets don't play by the same rules. Every retaliation, every act of retribution, is a reminder that the game Gotti's been playing isn't just dangerous, it's lethal. And the longer he stays in it, the higher the stakes become.
Our hearts go out to the Thornton family and all who are affected by this horrific act of violence. We are committed to working with the community to stop these senseless murders. We're also dedicated to bringing those responsible for today's shooting and others to.
It's hard not to wonder how much of this Gotti saw coming. Did he anticipate the fallout? Did he think he could outmaneuver it? Or did he underestimate just how far-reaching the consequences of his actions would be? Because make no mistake, this isn't just about him. It's about everyone who's ever been tied to CMG, everyone who's ever benefited from the power and influence Gotti wielded. And as the walls close in, it's becoming increasingly clear that no one is safe. The irony in all of this is that Gotti built his empire on the very streets that are now turning against him. The same streets that once celebrated his rise are now watching, waiting, and in some cases actively working to bring him down. It's a full circle moment, the kind of poetic justice that only the streets can deliver. And while Gotti might still have resources, connections, and influence, the question isn't whether he can survive this, it's whether he can survive it intact. So here's where we are. A man who once seemed untouchable, now facing the fight of his life. A label that was once a symbol of success, now teetering on the edge of infamy. And a city that's watching it all unfold, knowing that the outcome will change everything. Because this isn't just about Gotti. It's about Memphis. It's about power, loyalty, and the price you pay when you play a game this dangerous. But what do you think? Is Gotti's empire really crumbling? Or is this just another bump in the road for one of the most resilient figures in the game? And if the feds do come knocking, how many more dominoes will fall? Let us know your thoughts down below. And stay tuned, because this story is far from over.